Well, hello everybody. Larry Young here again with another segment of OLaMan Living Life with Purity. And today is October the 9th, and before we get started, I want to say that we all need to say a prayer today, if it is today that you're watching this, for the people who are still trying to escape Florida before Hurricane Milton hits. I know a few families and friends who were able to make it out. They've all told me that they've arrived safely in northern destinations. They're out of the path, and they're thankful that they're out. They said it was an arduous journey getting out of there. The traffic was terrible, but they did make it out, and they did make it to safety, so I'm thankful for that. So give a little prayer today and a little thought to hopefully no one gets hurt in this thing, not any more than is necessary, that no one needlessly gets hurt. I know there's going to be death, always is, but hopefully it won't be as bad as we've seen with Helene a couple weeks ago. So that being said, I want to tell you a little story about what happened to me in 2005, 2006 in Rome City. At that time, the Catholic Church was going through a lot of problems with a lot of bishops and archbishops and cardinals around the country were trying to find money to pay off tremendous lawsuits, claims that they had suffered from the pedophile situation and other extenuating circumstances with the judgments that had been levied against the church for the actions of priests and bishops and other people who had sexual deviancies. So the bill came in, and a lot of these places were trying as quickly as they could to liquidate real estate and old buildings and things like this. They were just trying to shed them as fast as possible. And private developers were snapping these properties up, and that led to a number of bad actors coming into the equation then as well. And one of those bad actors was a fellow by the name of Raffaelo Follieri. Raffaello was a fellow from Italy, and he had, alleged church ties. And he came into the United States, and he got hooked up with a couple other guys, and they were going to go about trying to snap up these church properties under the guise that they were good Catholic men and were going to be doing all this good work for the Catholic Church to buy these properties, get the money to the church, and still run them as Catholic-oriented facilities if they could. And, good intentions and all like that, but, ooh, boy, the way they executed it was pretty bad. Now, Follieri and his group got involved with a fellow by the name of Ron Burkle. Ronald Burkle was a major investor in a company called Whole Foods and a couple of other things that you probably never heard about. One of the things, he was a major supplier of hamburger meat to McDonald's franchises. And so he had a lot of money coming in, and he had more aspirations of getting more money and using his investments wisely. Well, he was involved with Bill Clinton and the Clinton organization and their foundation, as they called it. And so Ron Burkle, Bill Clinton, and all these other guys were hooked up then with Raffaello Follieri. And Follieri was using Burkle's money to go around and try to procure properties. And one of the properties they set their sights on was mine in Rome City, which is now the Patroness of America Center. But at that time, I was running soccer facilities, and I was trying to still rehabilitate the building. And I was working with the local bishop and others on the development of the devotion and sharing with them information that was coming in from the pilgrims that were coming in, healings that were happening, their testimonies. All this was being compiled and given to our local bishop, John Darcy, in Fort Wayne, South Bend. But in the meantime, the Follieri group contacted me. They had a gentleman by the name of Paul Galvin. Nice guy. I don't think he was doing anything unfair or untoward. I think his goals were genuine. And I think he really didn't know the depth of deception that was actually going on behind the scenes. Not sure, don't know, just my perception. Well, Paul Galvin contacted me, and he knew that I was looking for an investor. I was looking for somebody to come and help with the property because I had a lot of more dollars that needed to be spent to make the place safe and to get an economic engine going there. And he contacted me and said, hey, I'd like to come see the property. When can we come by? I said, any time is fine. I said, come on into Rome City and I'll put you up and we'll, show you the property and see what we can do. So the day when he was supposed to arrive came and went, and he didn't show up. He called me late at night. He says, hey, I'm here, but we don't know where you're at. And I said, well, I'm the big building up on the hill. I said, there's nothing else around. Well, it turned out that he was on the far southern part of the state of Indiana, not the northern part of the state of Indiana. He got mixed up, and he went to Rome, Indiana, not Rome City. So Rome, Indiana is clear down on the southern part of the state, out in the middle of nowhere. And Rome City is in the northern part of the state, out in the middle of nowhere. So easy mix-up there. So I told him of the confusion. So he slept overnight in Rome and then came to visit me the next day in Rome City. So we took care of that, just delayed it by a day. But it was kind of funny how that happened. And so he came, took a look at the property, loved what he saw the potential. I told him the history, and that if I was to do anything, that it would have to be inclusive of some sort of a shrine for Our Lady of America to be a part of that, because the pilgrims that would be coming were necessarily going to be wanting to have some way to stay and take part in learning about Our Lady of America and to feel the grounds and to feel the spirituality of the place. He understood that and he agreed. And so they ended up sending their architect in and another design guy, and they came in, they took measurements, they spent 3 days with me going over everything, and they just had this, hurry up offense. We got to come up with a business plan and all like that. And I told them, I said, one of the things that I thought would be a real good business plan would be a throwback to what the Sisters of the Precious Blood had done there for nearly a century, and that was to offer healing or spa type services. And they liked that idea, and they really liked the idea of the name I wanted to call it, and I wanted to call it the Blue Butterfly Spa. This is because not too distant from the time we were meeting, several weeks earlier, I had been up on Holy Family Hill where the statue was of the Holy Family, and what rested upon it were two large blue monarch butterflies. I mean, these huge butterflies. And they both rested on the statue, and my wife and I were looking at this, and I said, wow, I don't think these things are around here. She says, I don't know. She says, I think they're only like in California. I said, well, I don't know if that's true, but they're not from around here. Well, anyway, we captured the butterflies, and then we killed them, actually. And so we pinned them and put them in display boxes. I still have them. But I had them in my office at the time, and Paul Galvin and the other fellow was with them. We're looking at that and says, wow, those aren't from around here. I said, no, I don't think so. But we found them up on the hill. They landed on the statue while we were out there praying. He says, I think that's a sign. I said, I tend to agree. And so we set about the plan of trying to come up with the Blue Butterfly Spa and then the Shrine to Our Lady of America in this large facility. And so that was the operating plan going forward. And so they fast-tracked this, and they were putting all these designs together and putting the numbers together, and it was all working out. It all seemed like it was moving at breakneck speed, but I thought, well, this is what they do, and they know what they're doing, so I'll help them in any way I can. And they ended up bringing in another guy who they told me was Cardinal Sodano's nephew. Now, Cardinal Sodano at this time was the Secretary of State of the Vatican, or the Holy See. So he was a very, very powerful player over in Rome. And this was apparently his nephew. And they brought him in for extra credibility. And I was also getting calls from powerful archbishops and cardinals around the country. And one of those was Cardinal Regali, who I think was in Philadelphia. And they were all trying to tell me, what certifiable guys these were, and their credentials were there, and that I could, put my trust in these guys. But at the same time, I also had other people calling me, bishops and other folks from around the country, telling me to stay the hell away from these guys, to not trust them at all. So there was two different opinions coming in, all from Catholic Church leadership. So I don't know who was messed up, but I found out in the end who was really telling the truth and who had the right story. And we proceeded along, and it was in spring of 2006 that they finally had everything together, and they presented everything to Ron Burkle and apparently Bill Clinton, and so they were all a go, but there was one thing that they said I had to eliminate from the business plan. And I said, well, what's that? It says the shrine. There can't be any Catholic shrine on the property. And I said, well, that's a deal killer right there, because that's the whole purpose of why we're here. He says, well, there can't be a shrine. I said, well, who said that? He says, well, Ron Burkle said that they can't have anything to do with the shrine in the Catholic Church. So I said, was it just Burkle? Well, it was also Bill Clinton and his group said there couldn't be any type of religious activity going on there. They couldn't invest in something like that. I thought that was a little comical, and because I thought, why would you want to leave out your greatest partner that the universe or man has ever known, and that being God himself, and then in the power of the Blessed Mother to have her influence, for things as well. So it didn't set well with me, and I had to make an instant retreat backward. And I really wanted to help, but I didn't want it at that cost. And so we proceeded along a little bit, and then finally I delayed, and then later on they came to me, I think it was in 2007, and that was when Hillary Clinton came by, when she was stumping for to be the Democratic nominee to be the president against Barack Obama. Well, she had been in Kendallville, Indiana, doing a campaign stop, and they called me and wanted to come by and see the property. They were ultimately interested in, wasn't the property so much, it was the water resources on the property. And the property in Rome City has abundant mineral spring waters flowing off of it. And Ron Burkle and Bill Clinton and his group were quietly going around the country and buying up natural water resources. So they wanted these mineral spring waters. Bottled water was really the thing at that time. It was really making its huge impact on the economy, and they were a part of that. And they wanted the water. They wanted to do bottling. They sent their people in to test the water. I showed them where it all was and where the facilities could be set up. So I was playing ball with them. But that was their ultimate goal. They really didn't care about the history of the property. They just wanted the water. And when Hillary Clinton came by and was asking about the water, I told him, I said, well, no, I wouldn't sell to them. They had to buy the entirety of the property. They just wanted to buy the mineral rights. And I said, no, we're not going to do that. You have to buy the whole thing if you want any of it. She was a little not happy about that. And I said at that time, I said, I wouldn't be interested in selling to the Clintons anyway, because of, the impact that they've had on society and my concern about the negative aspects. So she was a little pissed off about that, and she left in a huff, and so we kind of split ways at that point. And then it was a couple months later, I think, that I got the call from Paul Galvin telling me that if we didn't do just the water and didn't do just the spa and leave off the shrine, that they were out of it. And I said, well, I guess you're out of it then. And so we didn't talk anymore. And it was shortly after that I believe that Raffaelo Follieri was arrested in his New York apartment at 6 a.m. in the morning for fraud. Because what had happened is he'd had a falling out with Ron Burkle, and they found a trail going on with the monies that he'd been spending in his expense account were all lavish lifestyles, that he was bringing in the actress Anne Hathaway was his girlfriend, and they were a hot item on the social circles, and I thought that was kind of ridiculous because they'd always tried to throw her out there as a carrot to my wife and I that, oh, you're going to be, friends with Anne Hathaway. And I'm thinking, well, she's like a 21, 23-year-old kid. I don't have much of anything in common with her, and I really don't have a thing for celebrity. So it really didn't interest us at all. So we thought that was a lousy carrot to try to throw out there. But this is where they were at. They were trying to play the the celebrity role, you'll be famous and all this kind of stuff. And I said, I'm not interested in that. I'm just interested in doing the right thing. Well, that all kind of fell apart, and Raffaelo Follieri got arrested, and Anne Hathaway never talked to him again. And I just think it was funny. So the shallowness of what they were building alleged life upon, and then when the guy gets knocked down and gets in trouble, then she abandons him. So there never was any real effort there to a relationship that these two had. It was all symbolic. It was all, candy and clover. So I'll get more into this story here with you with the Ron Burkle and Bill Clinton and Raffaelo Follieri details. But if you got any time on your hands and you want to do some research on that, you can look into Raffaelo Follieri and Anne Hathaway, and also some Ron Burkle situations with Bill Clinton. One of the things I thought was really funny and struck me as really hilarious early on was they sent me this news article about Raffaelo Follieri going to a big dinner at the Clinton Foundation and winning this major award from Bill Clinton. And that was because Raffaelo Follieri gave Bill Clinton, one of these big-ass checks, for $50 million. I mean, it was one of these big, token, 4-foot-long checks they showed for everyone in the room to be able to see how great they were and how big that number looked. Well, it was all false. Raffaelo Follieri didn't have $50 million, and it was all a fake front. He got the award. Bill Clinton and those guys, they all fell in line with it. There was no money. But this is all fraud. And this is what these people do to try to make themselves all look grand. So the check was never cashed, and the cash was never there, and it was all fraud. And sometimes if anyone asks me about how I feel about these things, if I kind of laugh and walk away, they probably don't understand my thinking on that. But my commentary, I think, is pretty true to the art. These guys were really frauds, and they were trying to bankroll their own interests off of the foreclosure in the Catholic Church, and they weren't there about any kind of sincerity to the church. All they wanted was the money and the prospect of getting more money. So be careful who you talk to sometimes. If it seems to be too good to be true, it probably is. And this time it really was too good to be true. But my spidey senses I was given were initially to look at it, and then I was getting different forms of communication from people in the church about these folks, so they didn't know what was going on either, obviously, either side. Just strange. So be careful out there if something like this happens to you. I'll get more into this a little bit later, but I just wanted to give you a little bit of a pre-story. When I get Alex back in here, we're going to go over this a little bit more. He's got some good questions for me, but I think you could do a little study on this if you're interested in it. But Raffaelo Follieri, he ended up getting 4.5 years in prison, and then was kicked out of the country, not to be able to come back on U.S. soil. This was around, I think, 2011. He finally was released from prison, went back to Italy, married a wealthy woman from New York, and he never has come back into the United States. But if he just comes across the southern border, they probably won't ask. So, well, there's my political commentary for the day. So, in the meantime, I love you, and I'll be back.